Okay, so today's topic is about Snow White. Um and I'm Ren and this is Slime.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I've been on this channel before. I talked about the remake of The Little Mermaid. So I guess I come on here whenever Disney does a live action remake.
Did we talk about the Little Mermaid before?
We did, because people were up in arms about that they made Ariel black. So we were discussing that controversy there. I think.
Wow, I don't remember that at all.
Oh my
Hmm.
gosh. I think it was like 2 years ago.
Oh, it was so years ago. Oh, it was so years
I
ago.
think so.
Yeah, that's the reason why I don't remember it. That's the reason why I don't remember it because yeah, I don't. Yeah, I can't. I can't remember that far back.
Yeah, fair enough.
Uh,
Yeah. So we got quite a topic here.
yeah. Okay. So it's like. I don't think we need to. I think we skip that part. Okay. The Rachel Zegler led remake of Walt Disney's first animated feature film has been mired in controversy even before it hits theaters. From Zegler's comments criticizing the 1937 film to Disney's decision to reimagine the Seven Dwarfs as CGI characters, people forget that controversy. Because there were people saying to boycott the films because they used CGI doors instead of hiring actors with dwarfism, because actors with dwarfism, they have very few and limited career opportunities in Hollywood.
I can see that. I can see that that's true because I think really the only actor with dwarfism that I can name off the top of my head is Peter Dinklage, and obviously he had a lot of feelings about. I think he was one of the people that commented on it,
He
but
was. He was.
yeah, and he's like, I think almost the main one out there, and he's has sort of that an image for that. But apart from him, I don't see a lot of other people out there representing. So maybe it is a an important systemic barrier.
Yeah, because people with dwarfism, they feel discriminated against already in the industry. They complain that they have very limited career opportunities. And by having CGI doors, it feels like something was taken away from them.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, if there are these actors out there that are looking for work, and then they want to use technology in their place without even giving them a shot, I do see a bit of a reason to be salty about that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like imagining, instead of hiring black actors, you just put white people in a blackface to do black roles. And I'm mentioning that because that has happened in Hollywood before. It has happened before in Hollywood where they'll just have a white actor play a black role, which would, make black people feel upset, naturally.
Yeah, I mean, like you, like I'm born a a dwarf. I don't know if that's a little person or I'm not. I don't want to use any bad terms here, but I'm born in such and such a way, and yet I can't play someone who's on the screen who reflects my lived experience. Obviously, I'm not a dwarf. Um, and or in the case of like in the 30s and or I don't know when they started making started realizing that blackface is bad, but say in the 30s when people were like like here I am, a person who has the experience every day of living as a black person, but some white person in makeup is playing me on the screen. It's like that is it is reflective of a kind of a barrier to getting hired for this kind of like this is kept above my where I can reach, right?
Right. Yeah. They said that it's already difficult being an actor with a dwarfism, but then because of the CGI doors, it takes, even more opportunities away. It's like, hey, let us play this role because it's like there's already limited work out there. So let's have this because there's just not a lot of, opportunities. And I could get it because like a person with a dwarfism, they are not, the leading role of, like, let's just say that there's a romance movie. Like if there's a romance movie, you don't see a person with a dwarfism being the male romantic lead. They'd go like, hey, let's look at, what do you say his name's Dinkle? I think you said his name's Dinkle. Yeah.
Uh, Peter Dinklage. Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, like people will go and get Peter Dinklage and say, "Hey, would you like to play the male romantic lead? Like, would you like to be Prince Charming? Would you like to be, Jack Dawson in the Titanic? We're gonna have like, the Titanic, but we want Peter Dinklage to play Jack Dawson, or like the heartthrob. I mean, Jack Dawson is the most famous one. He's the one that first comes to mind because of all of the memes, the constant Titanic memes. So you don't really see like, hey, let's have a person with dwarfism play the main lead. So it's like, hey, they really do, because the only other actor I could think of would be, have you seen like, Mike Myers, like the Spy Who Shagged Me?
Yes, yes. I think Vern Troyer was the name. It was the actor who played Mini Me, right?
Yeah, the actor that played Mini Me, so I could think of the actor that played Mini Me, other than that,
Yeah,
you don't really see all that many.
yeah. Was it Gary Coleman was another one, I think, in like the 1990s. I think they're both passed away, both Vern Troyer and Gary Coleman. I think. Um,
Like, is he that guy that went, what you talking about, Willis?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that old movie,
Yeah,
like Different Shows. What you talking about, Willis? Yeah, like I remember seeing that with my family. Uh, Even
yeah.
after Snow White hit the theaters, more controversies have ensued, especially surrounding Zegler's co-star, Gal
Uh,
Gadot.
Gal Gadot, yeah, she
Gal Gal Gadot. Oh,
yeah, her name was like Hebrewisized when her family moved to Israel. It used to be Greenstein, and then they like made it Hebrew instead of German or Yiddish.
I think it's Sherman. Because there's I remember talking to people in my Discord server about it, where they took German and they took Yiddish, and you really couldn't really tell it apart. Like, they had
Yeah,
one person on the screen speaking German, another person speaking Yiddish, and you really couldn't tell the difference.
yeah, it's really Yiddish is like the is basically the Jewish dialect of German. So it's like German with all this Hebrew influence, but it's developed in the Jewish communities of kind of Germany or Poland or Lithuania or wherever it was. Um, so really, the fundamental vocabulary and um, phraseology is very intelligible with German. Like a German person could understand a lot of what they're saying and vice versa without ever having studied the other one, you know?
It's kind of like slang, Dan. You know, it's kind of like
Yeah.
slang, like kind of like how when speaking Ebonics, the person may go like, "What up, y'all?" And you
Yeah.
know, when it comes to "What up, y'all," you could understand it without looking at a dictionary. You know,
Yeah.
dictionary
Yeah.
terms.
It's like a version of the language that developed in a specific community, I would say. Like, right. There's also for the because they're the Ashkenazi Jews, and then there are also the Sephardic Jews who are like the ones who were in Spain, who lived in Spain. So they have kind of a different version of Spanish that is like Judeo Spanish, or they call it Ladino, um, which is totally like understandable from Spanish. It's just like an old version of Spanish with Hebrew mixed into it and Arabic mixed into it. I mean, Spanish, I guess, Arabic mixed into it, but like totally understandable. It just sounds like old Spanish to a Spanish speaker, and I think that's the case with Yiddish to a German speaker as well.
I thought the Sephardic Jews were the Arabic Jews. I thought that they
Uh,
were,
I
that's
think
yeah, there are.
they I think they're called Mizrahi, the Arabic ones, but they're also those two communities are related because the Sephardic Jews got like Spain when the Catholic monarchs took over, they expelled all the Jews. So some of them went to like Morocco, Algeria, and to like the Middle East, and they like joined the Jews that were already in those countries. So they think there's a tendency to call like Middle Eastern Jews Sephardic too, just to differentiate them from the Ashkenazi, who are like the main European Jews and like the most kind of influential ones in like American society or like Canada or Europe.
Yeah, because it's like I thought that the Jewish people from well, the Arabic Jews, like the Jewish people like from Iraq and the Jewish the Jewish Iraqi community, I thought that they were Sephardic Jews.
Yeah, the word Sephardic comes from Sepharad, which is like the Hebrew word for Spain. Um, so by the strictest definition, the Jews that are Sephardic are the ones that can trace their lineage to the Spanish Jews. But I think, um, kind of as a term of differentiation, maybe from the Ashkenazi Jews, a lot of the Mizrahi Jews who are technically different are labeled as Sephardic Jews as well, just to kind of like maybe a lot of people don't know the word Mizrahi, which is like supposed to mean like Eastern, like Middle Eastern.
Yeah, this is all kind of new to me. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not really familiar with all of the you know, like I'm more familiar with an Ashkenazi Jew because the Ashkenazi Jew there would be the European Jews.
yeah. Like I think most of the Jewish people outside of like the Middle East or Latin America would be like Ashkenazi Jews. Um, like the ones who are like in politics or in the like Gal Gadot is an Ashkenazi Jew, um, as well. And in general, I think the majority in America are Ashkenazi.
Yeah, I believe so too. I believe so too. That the majority of Americans, because if I recall, yeah, I did Google this one time months back, but 93% of Jews in America self-identify as white.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's true because maybe in like the context of like the 1910s or something, they would not have done that. But in general, I think they are considered in the white majority as well as like Dutch people or German people or Irish people or in general Italians or any kind of European cultures, even though they're not like WASP, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, which used to be like in like the colonial era of America, maybe the WASP definition is the was the standard for being white. But nowadays, it's like you think of a white person, or like Woody Allen would count as that to most people.
Yeah, like I would consider Bill Maher to be white because to me, like when I think of whites, I just think of a person's skin tone. Like if you look white, you are white, in my views. I think that's true for many black people. Like I think, um Whoopi Goldberg got in hot water for saying something of a similar effect. But like to black people, like if you look white, then you are white to a black person's point of view.
Yeah, I mean, when there are these like systemic kind of start like institutionally, when we talk about the like racism in general, people are, I mean, there's there's nuance to the issue, but in general, someone who's going to be racist to you is going off what you look like. So if you look like a white person, maybe you're um, Puerto Rican, but if you have white skin, if you have kind of European presenting features, maybe, um, unless they hear you like speak Spanish or look at your last name, which could be like Hernandez, they're still gonna think of you first as a white person if you that's how you look. Whereas if you're visibly of a different race, that is what they will see first.
Yeah, it reminds me because I think that you, me, and a Jewish person all were in, an argument. Like it was years back, years ago. I'm not sure if you remember it, but you quote tweeted a Jewish person. I thought that a Jewish person was white at first. I honestly believed that a Jewish person was a racist white person. And then I called that person a white supremacist. They're like, no, 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 I'm not a white supremacist. And then they told me about their history and how they denied their identity. They said that, for a long time, they because they looked white, they described themselves as whites, and then they get along swimmingly with white people. And what stopped them from getting along swimmingly with white people is that a white person found out that they were Jewish, and after the white person found out, that a person was Jewish, then they got severely bullied and harassed. And they're like, well, I'll never deny my identity again because now that I've gotten found out to be a Jew, I'm getting bullied, harassed, and tormented. But like when you are Black, people automatically know that you're Black. Being Black is not something that you could hide. There's no like, I can never go like, man, somebody found out that I was Black. I mean, maybe online, maybe online, but people don't find out that I'm Black, especially like not somebody at work. Like if you see me, I'm Black.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I guess that's what maybe they talk about when they say like white passing privilege, but in general, like what yeah, it I don't know why we have to like split so many hairs about what it means to be white. Like, oh, to be white, you have to be 100% English or something. No, no, nobody thinks of it like that. It's like, um, what happens is like, obviously, like the KKK's version of white is going to be they want Protestants, Western European, not Jewish, not Catholic, not anything like that. That is their definition. Or with the Nazis, they want able-bodied, um, nor Scandinavian genetics, and can't be Jewish or homosexual or something. That's their vision of a ideal for white people, but that's not the predominant definition of it in American society, or by the same effect, Canadian society. It's not like that. Like here is like if you are visibly a minority, you can't just hide that, or that's not something that someone would have to look at your family history to know. It's just they know.
Yeah, like, for me, like, if you look white, you are white. That's how I see, like, Lime, I view you as whites because you look white. Like,
Yeah.
if you had anything in you, I wouldn't know. Like, I think you told me that you were parts German before, and I mean, all I remember is your German identity. I could only
Yeah.
remember your German identity, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got a whole bunch of stuff going on, but yeah, I look at my skin is white. I exist in the world, I would say, as a white person in every setting that I think I'm considered racially. On forms, I will check that I'm white. So I guess that's the experience that I think I have, and I don't. I think it would be silly. Like I think I think I do have like Jewish ancestry on part of my family, but I'm like I wouldn't say that I'm high. That if I were to that would be something that would affect that would make me unsafe in everyday life just from looking at me, like, or if I was in a setting that was full of white racists. I don't know.
Mm, oh, yeah, I didn't know that you had Jewish ancestry. Oh,
Yeah, from my German side,
oh,
I
yeah.
think there are some surnames that are Jewish, but it's like I'm not going to be like that person and say that I'm that now. What was it that the person on Twitter said? They were like, "I'm hiding my. I will never hide my identity now, and I'll never say that I'm a white person when I'm in fact Jewish." But most people like who are racist are not that discerning. I think like they have to have a broader ideology like Nazism to be that discerning of a racist, or like the KKK. They have to have that kind of ideology, but that's different from the average person who is racist, because someone who thinks that black people are just criminals, or they think that Indians are dirty, or whatever it is that they believe, they are looking at people who look different, and that is what they're forming their prejudices on, or based off like a stereotype of people who look a certain way. But it's not as common the kind of inter ethnic racism of like, oh, you're Polish or you're Irish or you're Dutch, and then forming stereotypes based on that. Like, obviously, there are slurs for like Irish people, like Mick, or um, I don't know any other ones, Mick or Patty, I guess. But they're just they're seen as like silly now, or they're almost it's kind of affectionate to like because people don't take it as seriously as a serious form of bigotry if you call an Irish person a Mick or an Italian person a wop. I'm sure some people will find that like not a polite thing to say, but it's usually like more so in good fun. But if like you were to in it's less common for to hear like the N word in a from a white person's mouth in a friendly context because that form of racism is still so prevalent and affecting, you know?
Mhm. Patty. I did not know that Patty was an insult because isn't that in some children's books? Because but not like two insults Irish, but like knick knack, patty whack, give a dog a bone.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, you have you
Yeah.
heard of that? Like knick knack, patty whack, give a dog a bone. This old
This
man
old
is
man came
going home.
rolling home. I didn't. Yeah, I never thought that that song had. Never thought of that. That song had different slurs for Irish people.
Mm. Oh, okay. Sure continue. Well, Gadot's, and her political views. Several activists opposed to Israeli policies have called for a boycott of the film targeting Gadot and her past services in the IDF forces. I mean, she didn't need to be proud of it. I know that Israel has conscription, so serving is not a
Yeah.
choice, but she doesn't need to be proud of it. She could just be like, hey, Israel has conscription. I kind of had to do it, but it's not something that I wanted to do. Segler
Yeah.
previously drew more criticism of her own, with her openly sharing her own pro-Palestine beliefs that directly opposed Godot's. Um, there's a genocide going on, and Sackler is showing that she's a human being.
Yeah. It's crazy because, like, I get that from Gal Gadot's point of view, their society is very, like, militaristic and very, like, propaganda, very kind of propagandist. So they're maybe, like, and what they're taught from, like, in school and all their institutions and everything, that these people are against us. We're keeping ourselves safe from these terrorist attacks that we have like the military capacity to completely overwhelm and destroy the and like it's like definitely they have the upper hand, and if they wanted to wipe out Hamas, they could do it. Like they have definitely the power to do that, and they are they don't see. I don't know if that's. I don't think that's, or I think anyone who's watching maybe can tell that's not just what they're doing by totally um, committing ethnic cleansing on the population of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank.
Yeah. Likely due to a myriad of controversies, Snow White has proceeded to underperform at the box office, coming in below expectations on its opening weekend. Despite this, the IMDb scores for the movie still seem to indicate significant viewer bombing. For comparison, review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes list the film's audience approval rating at incredibly high 73% from over 1,000 verified ratings. Current box office returns for Snow White are over um, 145 million worldwide, but the film still has a long way to go if it's going to be profitable for Disney. It's estimates that it will need to gross over 500 million in order to not be a box office failure, with the film's production budget costing over 240 million, not including any promotional campaigns and other forms of advertising. Star supports Rachel Zegler amid Snow White's discourse. Um, I would say this, I'm also very pro Palestine. You know, um, I would support her in that because Israel is committing a clear genocide. Um, while Zegler's support of Palestine has led to an immense backlash that's translated into Snow White's controversy, the actor has received supports from a number of her peers in Hollywood. Melissa, don't know how to pronounce that, who was
Barrera,
fired, huh?
Barrera.
Barrera, who was fired from Scream 7 after demonstrating supports for Palestine, called that is just so messed up that she got fired from her job just for demonstrating support for Palestine, called out what was perceived as a targeted hit piece by Variety. A newly published hits piece in Variety magazine's attempt to paint Rachel Zegler as difficult and politically radical. I don't see how, because when I look at the polls, I think it says something like 80% or 83% of Democrats support Palestine. So, like, sure, I would say that maybe years back, it would have been radical, extreme, far left, and, so far left that it's just, zany. But because of social media,
Yeah,
yeah, because of social media, we've seen the dead bodies. You know what I'm saying? We've seen the
exactly.
dead bodies. So while sure, years back, I would agree that it would have been so far left that it would have been unhinged, because most people who are to the center supports Israel. But because of all of the videos, the pictures, like, if the pictures don't do it for you, if the pictures are not enough for you, then the videos should be, like the videos, like, leaves
Yeah,
no, what I'm saying? Like, I saw a video like yesterday or 2 days ago where I saw the IDF, shooting down an ambulance. You know what I'm saying? Or
yeah,
there are videos of, like, the IDF shooting civilians as they flee. Like, there are videos of, civilians being bombed and running away in fear and in terror.
yeah. And literally, like, people on people who have been to that area, they're like firsthand accounts that I've heard from people that I think people have just had their eyes open, and that is the what is kind of um how should I say, like, doing away with this pro-Israel consensus, and like people just kind of passively accepted it for a long time, or just didn't really give it much attention because it's in another land. It's not here, we're not the it's not at our doorstep. We pay taxes towards it, but we don't see where that money goes. And now people are seeing that. And I actually think my mom is friends with a Jewish rabbi from my city who has been to that area, and is like, now he's like a very outspoken, like, pro-Palestine activist, which has brought him into a lot of tension with his temple and with the community and everything. But it's from what he's seen with his own eyes. Like, how much more unbiased can you be to? I don't think very much more unbiased. I mean, the the violence and everything.
Yeah, there are Jewish people who are pro-Palestinian, and then of course, right-wing Jews have a motive to paint them as crazy, unhinged leftists, when really, from at least from what I've seen, at least from the YouTube videos I've watched, these people, these Jews who are pro-Palestine, these started off as Zionists and pro-Israel, but then they just see so much that, if you are Jewish, you are subjugated to civilian law. But if a person is Palestinian, they would be subjugated to military law. If you have a Jewish kid that acts up, then it's like the Jewish kid wouldn't suffer much consequences. But if a Palestinian acts up, then the IDF would get them, and they would be taken to a military court, and it would be entirely in Hebrew. Even though the Palestinian doesn't speak a word of Hebrew, translators would not be provided. The kid would not receive due process. He would get sent to prison. And in prison, I mean, there are things that I wouldn't be allowed to mention on YouTube that happens to him.
Yeah, it's awful. And like just the things that the Israeli media is willing to portray Palestinian people and Arab people as, it's like grossly racist. Like we think of like um things that people get canceled for over over here, but I don't I don't know, like cancel culture should take effect on the things that they say, but it's like genocidal like rhetoric that they come, like they literally think that no Palestinian child is innocent, no child in Gaza is innocent, and they say this. I've seen this verbatim said by um Israeli accounts on Twitter, that, and even like people who are influential, like hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter, and they will say things like no child in Gaza is innocent.
Like, people don't really understand how grossly racist Israelis are unless they actually view the Israeli media, because there are things that the American media hides from us. But if you were to go to like the Israeli media, like you could see exactly how Palestinians are treated. Like you could see them sick dogs on
Yeah.
Palestinians, and you could see horrific treatments in prison. Like I would see like dogs attacking Palestinians, or I would see them like getting beaten in prison. I would see by guards. I would see things that are if this happened in America, people would be outraged. Like, even there would even it would be so controversial that there would be even some right wingers. In fact, I mean, there are even some right wingers who do look at into the conflict, if you could call it that. And there are some right wingers who are like, "Hey, what Israel, is doing is disgusting." I mean, but I mean they go a lot further than I would, but because but it's like you can see like Jake Shields and Candace Owens, and I mean even the likes of Nick Fuentes. Like you would see the likes of Nick Fuentes of all people, just saying like Israel is committing a genocide against the Palestinians. And I'm kind of shocked, because it's like, Nick, you're a white supremacist, and being a white supremacist, I am surprised that he cares about the rights of brown people.
Yeah, it's crazy because a couple years ago, it would be like the far right online, which Nick was adjacent to. Their focus, their focus was the was on Western civilization versus Islam, like Lauren Southern type of person, like Faith Goldie or like Rebel Media, which is obviously still in that element, but they've joined the establishment of like the Daily Wire and everything. But even like now, like those same people who were like, I mean, I don't know about Faith Goldie. She was a weird one, because she was Fuentes adjacent, but she was also in favor of like one state solution, Israel. She was pro Israel, and that was like the one thing that she was like that she would use every time she got flack for talking about Jews. She would be like, "Oh, but I'm pro Israel," but like Lauren Southern back in the day, she would all her shtick was like, "Oh, F Islam," you know. And now that is not. I think it's not as common, or maybe I mean, obviously there was the whole revelations about like that she was getting money from Russia or something, which she claims to not know about. I don't know if she knew. I don't know. I'm not gonna opine on that, but I think there among the far right there was more of an an acceptance of Israel because they believed that the enemy was Islam, which make in that worldview they think Palestinians are that, or like are of a force of that. But that worldview, I think it's been revealed to a lot of these people like Candace Owens or like Lauren Southern, that it's not so simple. It's not simple like that. It's not like that. And that's inconvenient for that worldview. But I mean, Candace Owens, she obviously, we know she was with the Daily Wire, and they canned her when she started to question what Israel was doing. And now I think she has gone a little bit more the way of like not Nick Fuentes, but like more like I don't know if she is more anti-Semitic now. I think a lot of what a lot of right-wing people when they talk about it, like I think Jake Shields was his name, they are coming at it from a stance of like Jews bad, and then in kind of expounding on that belief, they and they're like, and so like if you like it is making people anti-Semitic when they see these things more sympathetic to these people. And like I found in moments like something that Nick Fuentes is like, there will be a Nick Fuentes clip that comes up on my Twitter because of course it's Elon's Twitter now. Um, and he'll be talking about Israel, and I'll be like, look, I know who Nick Fuentes is, but like if somebody not like me, not knowing who he is, saw this clip in isolation, I mean, nothing in it really sounds wrong because he's like talking about the influence that Israel has on American politics, talking about how like the right wing is owned by Israel and how like the system is like in favor of Israel. And it's like, These are facts. But what Nick but Nick Fuentes is not the guy I want to be listening to this from.
know.
But
I know.
someone could definitely be swayed. Someone could definitely be swayed to adopt Nick Fuentes's worldview if they were more naive, because how he approaches this issue is like factual, you know? Well,
Yeah, yeah, I
factual
know.
from I don't want to say Nick Fuentes is factual, but
No, no, I know what you
um
mean. It's like I
when
know
he's
what you mean
talked
because
about Israel. Yeah.
yeah, like I know what you mean because it's like Breitbart. He was talking about how Breitbart, I think it was Breitbart, and how the owner of Breitbart was a former IDF soldier. It was either Breitbart or PragerU. I forgot which one, but one of them, like either Breitbart or PragerU, one of them is owned by a former IDF soldier, and it's like, oh, so you're getting your pro Israel news from them, but okay, it's owned by a former IDF soldier. And it's like, I Googled it, and it's like, Nick Flint says this right. It actually is owned by a former IDF soldier. There's sometimes, you will see it starts to go viral, where the owner, again, I forget if it was Sprite Park or PragerU, but you would see it would just go viral. That's like, oh yeah, like this person is a former IDF soldier, and that's your trustworthy news, your trustworthy, unbiased news from a situation, a person who has every motive and every reason to lie about you. Or Ben Shapiro, a proud Zionist, he again who has every motive and every reason to, lie to you to protect Israel. And
I
he
think
was just,
Prager oh
go
sorry.
ahead.
Um the the PragerU has a video that's basically like the IDF is the most moral army in the world, or, or something. So it might be them that is run by the former IDF soldier. I'll have to check that because
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
Dennis Prager is very Zionist. Sorry.
Yeah, like it's like I fact checked everything that Nick Fuentes said one day. I was like, okay, this is Nick Fuentes we're talking about here. Let me just Google search this because let's take everything that Nick says with a heavy, heavy grain of salt. So it's like, oh God, he's right.
Yes. That's where it becomes dangerous because, like, obviously, Nick Fuentes is like a Nazi sympathizer. Well, I mean, I don't want to be heavy-handed, but he has defended Hitler. Um he did say the whole thing about Cookie Monster and the ovens and baking 6 million cookies. So he is not the guy that I particularly am thrilled to be handing it to, you know?
Yeah, I understand. I understand, but sometimes there are right wingers that will bring up things that you never heard of before. Like let's say, how Israel did like some a false like a false flag operation called Cast Thy Bread, which Jake Shields brought up, and it's like sometimes they bring up things that you would really never hear of before. You'll be like, it's like, I never heard of this. And then you want to be on the safe side and take everything with a grain of salt and fact check what they have to say. And then, I guess, like you said, the scary parts and the dangerous part, it's like you could Google search it and then they would be completely correct. Like there's no lies. They're not even exaggerating. It would be really that bad, if not worse than what they described.
Yeah, literally, it's like it's probably because they are so like impassioned in their worldview that like these people are the enemies, that they're like tirelessly researching these things that are like could make someone who already like knows um coming into it that Israel is does these things, that Israel has this influence, and Israel obviously is carrying out all these like acts towards Palestinians, knowing that they, and even if even if the person talking is coming at it from a perspective of we need the final solution, it's like if they're speaking facts, or they're saying things that maybe like they're bringing to light the things that are important to know, that it's like that gives them an advantage, that gives them a win, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think also part of it. I mean, it kind of reminds me of how I bought and read Sticks Hammer's book, one time, and he says that the problem with the left is that the left speaks in a way that is hard for the average person to understand, and the advantage that the right has is that they talk in a way that the average person could understand. Or it's kind of this. I now work in telemarketing, and being a telemarketer, I don't really want to say where, but being a telemarketer, like, it's amazing the things that I have to explain to people. Like, there are people, like, that don't understand things like the word citizen. And I had and they were born here, raised here, lived here all their lives, but I still need to explain what the word citizen means. I need to explain. I mean, I need to explain what an occupation is to people doing telemarketing, being telemarketing. I had to explain to people what an occupation is, and what gets really sad is that I had to explain to people what a college degree, what an occupation is, or what's, a civilian is. And it's like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that you have your master's degree and I need to explain to you what a civilian is? That is just kind of sad. But
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of what Sticks Hammer said, that the disadvantage of the left is that they use lots of words that many people on average don't understand. But the advantage that the right wingers have over the left is that they use simplistic words, like really, really simple words that your average person could comprehend. And so part of me wonders, it's like, is the part, at least part of the reason, you know, um, why they talk the way they do is to have things, dumbed down so that a person who dropped out of school and only has an eighth grade education could understand. Because being a telemarketer, I really do end up talking to people who really do only have an eighth grade education, where the eighth grade is as far as they went, and they went no further. And so, like, they even though they were born here, and raised here, because they dropped out of school at such a young age, the eighth grade, they have difficulty comprehending English, even though they lived here all their lives. They lived here, they were born here, they were raised here. America is all that they know. But because they only have like an eighth grade education, they have a very difficult time comprehending English. So part of me wonders if part of the reason why right wing influencers talk the way they do is so that people with an eighth grade education, could understand what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think there really is something to that, and like messaging, and basically like it is true, like a lot of the kind of left wing in general, I will speak in a generality, is they tend to use a lot of kind of academic terms and a lot of like composing like a research heavy thesis, or like referring to like books. And I think a lot of like kind of like Democrats or liberals, they will honestly see this as an advantage. They'll be like, oh, educated people are on our side. I wonder why that is. But it's like, I think it exposes kind of a fundamental gap in like perception, or like a fundamental gap in consciousness, maybe, because the majority of people, like what you need to, in theory, to win an election is not not all those educated people. So you have to be able to communicate to and what the right uses, because I think my grandma watches a lot of kind of right wing um, media, or like dissident right wing media. And she was talking to my mom one day about something about transgender mice or something. And she was very like, no, they were talking about this is, and like impassioned about it. And then my mom was like, she looks it up and she was like, do you mean transgenic mice? Um, and and then it was like, oh, that's a different thing. Um, Transgenic mice are mice whose genomes have been altered by introducing foreign DNA, often uses animal models for studying human diseases or gene function. So it's like animal testing, basically. But what the right does well is, I guess, they speak to people's feelings, what they feel is true, or what um, they feel. Because it's not academic. It's often very minimally statistical, and like that's why they can kind of go on about this like culture war stuff, because they're appealing to a vague sense of just maybe confusion, like about, say, the trans issue. We'll say like about trans people, LGBT things, and they'd be like, um, channel the confusion into like resistance, or like to see it as a threat, basically. Like channeling the feeling that the unknown is fearful into like mobilization against the threat of like trans people in bathrooms doing things. And maybe, I mean, I'm not going to go into that issue because
Yeah, but I think that Stick Saxonhammer had a point where he says that the biggest downfall, or the biggest downside of the left, is that the left tends to use a lot of, highbrow vocabulary that the average person does not understand, while the right wingers keep things simple and speak to the average person. Because even Sean had, not only Sean had, but there's this other left wing bread tuber that made a video similar to Sean had, that the Democratic Party is no longer seen as the working class party. And the right wing party, it's now seen as the working class party. And I think that, again, it goes back to Stick Hammer's point that, it's like, when you look at a Bretsu video, they're going to use lots of academic terms, that the average person doesn't understand. but a bunch of right wing people, like even people like Temple, would use words that your average person could understand. That's like, oh, I understand. Like you could actually understand each and every single word that comes out of Tim Pool's mouth without using, a dictionary. You don't need to go like, let me get a dictionary to understand simple. You could, understand simple. And I
Yeah.
think that sometimes when he uses, a highbrow vocabulary word, he would actually explain what a word means, to his audience so that his audience could understand what words mean because it's kind of like a word like I don't know, like stymied or vis-a-vis or Jeremiah, like who actually understands that, But when somebody, is speaking, kind of like how I'm speaking now, a way that people, your average person could understand, that is probably the advantage that many right wingers has because when it comes to right wingers like Jake Shields, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, one thing that you got to admit is that people understand each and every single word that comes out of their mouths. Like you could understand it then without grabbing a dictionary. Like, wait a minute, let me pause this video and let me Google search that word so I can understand what they're saying. Like, or going like this concept is kind of really difficult for me to grasp or get a hold of. They kind of speak in a way where you don't need a dictionary to understand what they're saying. You don't need a or read a Wikipedia entry to understand the concepts. You can just understand what they have to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's very that's true. And also like I do see a lot of kind of the messaging of like um my of like if you vote for us or if you don't vote for us then you're stupid, like kind of that kind of thing from like Democrats and like liberals and stuff like that. And I think that is very obviously it's not a good look. um because and like obviously there's a great deal of like name calling and like mud throwing from the right wing, and they do it a lot. And like um I think the Conservative Party right now is running ads that in my country that show members of the Liberal Party as like the devil and stuff like that. So like obviously, but I would say that is that is messaging that people respond to. I mean, it's not like it would be nice if politics wasn't like that because it's very much kind of made I think they've made kind of entertainment out of it. But yeah, I mean and like
Yeah,
the, the Trump side
yeah,
does that a
yeah,
lot
like
too.
but I still think that they love to shooting, themselves and fit so much because sometimes they could act like superior to you. They could talk down to you. They could treat you like you're dumb. Like they could shoot up big words. Like they could shoot out big words. Like again, like words like stymied and words like I don't know, sesquipedalian. I don't know. They could shoot out words wouldn't understand. But think about from doing telemarketing, there are so many people that only have an eighth grade education. There are so many people that don't even have a high school diploma, don't even have a GED, where, the eighth grade or the ninth grade or the 10th grade, is as far as they go. And it's just like, you could go and call a person a stupid, an idiot, a moron, and make them feel bad even though, they probably really do have a really low education level. And, it's like, do you really need to use, really lofty words, like, because who's it for? Like, all of these really big words, who is it really for? Because it really seems to be for somebody's ego rather than to explain, a point or explain a concept. Instead of going, like, I'm going to, explain this concept in a way that, because it's like sometimes you really do got to explain a concept in a seventh grade education level, because some people have only completed the seventh grade.
Hmm. Yeah, that 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 is, yeah. Sorry, my brain is like fuzzy. But yeah, I think that is a lot of where it's people um like a lot of people think that what the left is all about is like academia and stuff that is not really like accessible to them. And like I think there are some people out there who are left wing, like public figures who definitely make an effort to bridge that gap, to kind of remedy what that perception has done. But it's not as like when there's like MSNBC, CNN, all these like all these like media that present it one way. It's like if that's what people see, if people see that it's like very bureaucratic language and very like highbrow stuff that they can't connect to, then it's like it's not doing. They don't feel it's doing anything for them. I mean, even if you have better policies that are substantively doing more, it's important that people can actually understand if they're like the majority of voters and like people who are ultimately going to decide if you get to have power over them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, at least one good thing about Stonehead, like, I know that a lot of people on the left hate Stonehead. There are so many people on the left that hate Stonehead, but at least she dumbs things down to like a seventh grade, education level, so that you could actually understand, where people in the left are coming now. And it's like, oh, now I get this. Oh, now I get that. Like, oh, now I get it. And when people could understand it, then they could be like receptive of it. But as long as, there's all of this highbrow language, that is going to be a turn off. And you can't really blame a people for flocking to people that they could actually understand, because again, the one good thing about Jake Shields, Candace Owens, and I'm not going to even include that other guy's name in this list because he's too much. But one good thing is that you can actually understand everything that they have to say without rushing to get your dictionary, or going to Wikipedia and looking up that kind of stuff. You could just actually understand what they say, because they simplify everything. It's like, oh, thank God I could actually understand you. And it's like, I'm not interested in that leftist person because they talk in a way that's too highbrow for me to understand. I don't understand what that person has to say, so I'm not going to listen to them.
Yeah, and I think like years ago, like people were there were people who were like pro Palestine, obviously, but it was a lot of like academic kind of discussion, and like you would talk about like concepts like settler colonialism, which I mean it is, but that is not the kind of lens that the average person will necessarily take to. And with those people that you mentioned, um, they're not taking that lens. They're just presenting like this is what they're doing. This is the power that they have. This is what it is. This, and I think that obviously with everything that is taking into account everything that is like in their worldview is more of a is more of something that will make people respond to it faster, I think, and
Yeah,
be
yeah,
accountable.
I believe so too. Like, because it's like, I noticed that, like with I noticed that people actually respond to, Jake Shields and Candace Owens, and I hate to say it, but Nick Fuentes. People actually respond to it because they could actually understand it, they could actually understand it. But we talk about settler colonialism, and then we talk about the issue like it's a college research paper, you know. If you're going to talk about, okay, the settler colonial states of Israel, and let's talk about it, and let's use really highbrow vocabulary. I mean, you're using words that people can't understand, and it could possibly like benefits, people like Netanyahu. He probably is grateful that you're using words that average people do not understand.
Yeah, and I think maybe in some level, I mean, I want to have more faith in people, but than this. But I think maybe, or I think at some level, the consensus of people in the West about Israel. I mean, not talking about Jewish people in particular, but a lot of Israelis are, I mean, it's not a majority of their society, but a lot of the Israelis you see, like Gal Gadot, are like white Jews, like a lot of the actors on American television, and just like, and they identify that with that because that's what they see in like on TV. That's what they see in Israel. But America also has this whole culture of like anti-Arab sentiment and anti-Muslim sentiment, and that's what they see in the Palestinians. So they're more like they've been more receptive to messaging that portrays them as like terroristic aggressors against people that are just like us in the Middle East. It's a Western country in the Middle East. That's what they think, or that's what really a lot of like right wing messaging around Israel is like that. And it's kind of about, in some way, like identifying with the people that you see. But now people can see more. They like identify with the mother who was sheltering her children from the bombs in the Gaza Strip. Like, but
Well, it makes me think of, I don't know, I don't know if I should call it Israeli propaganda or Zionist propaganda, because it's kind of like I'm starting to know this tactic where people, on the Zionist side, they seem to be incapable of, uplifting Israel. So what their results are doing is, mentioning, 9/11 a lot, or Charlie Hebdo a lot. And, like, you see people on the right wingers who are like, I don't like either group. It's like, hey, you do realize that you can hate both groups simultaneously, because it's like, you know, there's a difference between pushing, another group down and lifting yourself up, because it's kind of a lot like, I hate to name names here, but it's kind of a lot like how I would see like Tyler Preston mentioning 9/11 like a million times. It's like, how like in the course of 1 year, Tyler Preston is talking about, I don't know, 9/11 like 50 times in 1 year, or he's like mentioning Charlie Hebdo, like, I don't know, like 50 times in 1 year. And it's like, you do realize that there are people who hate both the Jews and Muslims at the exact same time. Even if you can convince each and every single last person that, Muslims are the scum of the earth, you do realize that there are people who just hate both, right? Because giving people reasons to hate Muslims is not, that's not promoting Zionism, because there are people who are like, well, I hate both at the same time. What about that? Because nobody is really addressing the core of the issue, kind of like the USS Liberty, that Israel has bombed us. Like, okay, Israel shot down the USS Liberty. Israel stolen uranium from us. They have actually used spyware on us. Like, like there are like so many articles and videos out there about how Israel uses lots and lots of spyware on America, where they spy on us more aggressively than Russia or China. Like, Russia has been considered our enemy for years. China has been considered our enemy for years, but Israel spies on us more aggressively than Russia or China. It's like or it's kind of like, if you look into the Lavon affair, they have actually shot down, well, not shot down, but bombed like American, education centers and theaters, like, I mean, theaters. So
Yeah.
it's like, start looking like the Apollo affair, the Levant affair, or they tried to assassinate like an American, like, what's his name, Gunter or something. Like, I had to look it up, like John Gunter. I don't need to look it up, but it's like they actually tried to assassinate some, not that, but I think it's been revealed that Israel is behind the assassination behind JFK. So it's like, even if you bring up, 9/11 a bunch of times and Charlie Hebdo a bunch of times, you're not convincing me to support Zionism. And again, there are people who hate both groups. You're not actually, trying to, bringing up, 9/11 may convince a bunch of people that Muslims are bad, but, because you're not addressing the USS Liberty. You're not addressing the spies, the attempts of spies spying against us, because you're not addressing the assassination of JFK, because you're not, there's so many countless things that Israel has done to America that you refuse to address. You're not actually convincing people to be pro Zionism. You're just trying to convince people to hate Muslims, even though there are people who hate them both.
Yeah, literally. And I did notice that. Like, actually, I checked on Mr. Preston's channel a couple, like 2 months back or something, because I did follow him for a while, and then it started all the like pro Israel arguments, and I was like, it really does seem like, because he's got the whole, his perspective is as like a secular humanist atheist kind of person, from what I can tell. um And he said, I think he made the argument that as an atheist he would be safer in Israel than Palestine, as though that has any relevance to the issue whatsoever because he doesn't live in either.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. He does live an eater, and he probably wouldn't fare all that well in Israel either, because there's this video that went viral of this guy from India. And this a guy from India tried to go to a bar in Israel. He's an Israel supporter. He loves Israel. He cares about Israel. Being from India, he's highly supportive of Israel, and he wasn't allowed to go inside any bar. All of the bars were like, no, we're full. No, no, you can't come inside. And he's been to every single bar in Israel, and none of them wanted to allow him inside a bar in Israel. Or there's this other weird video that I see go viral talking about Ethiopian Jews, and if an Ethiopian Jew were to touch a wine, it becomes worthless, and all that. But I even found it. I ended up in a conversation with an Ethiopian Jew. And this person, I don't know if it's a male or female, I don't know how they identify, but that person was talking about, like, they experience intense racism, in Israel, or like in the Discord server I'm in. There's a black man who was like part of the army. He went to Israel. And he was treated with such intense racism while he was there.
yeah, I've heard all kinds of things like that, and like police aggression against the Ethiopian Jewish population, which is kind of like a lot like uh, how like that is in America in some cases. Like it has been almost comparable, but very like racist society, and
Yeah,
including to its own citizens.
like Israel is highly racist. If you, especially if you look into the treatments of Ethiopian Jews, it's like a forced, okay, like they what forced contraception against Ethiopian women, where they like, while Ethiopian women were like in, I don't know, anesthesia, they would just put contraceptions in Ethiopian women to prevent them from reproducing.
Oh my god, literally eugenics. Like that is yeah. Yeah, that's I heard about that as well. Um it doesn't surprise me at all. But I think what they promote really is like even though theoretically they're like Jews from all around the world come here and like we are a united culture. We're going back to our roots. That's kind of why the Hebrew language was revived. Because so they would have kind of a common tongue for all these like Jewish people who had always been in different lands and some who were still there and all around the world. Um, but really, it does promote kind of a homogenization to, well, the early Zionists, or a lot of the early Zionists that I have read about were European Jews or like American Jews of European descent who had this idea, and then they started living on this land when it was part of, I think, when it was mandatory Palestine under the British Crown. And so a lot of, in fact, there was a letter, I think, from the one of the Zionists, one of the foundations of one of the key people in the Zionist Congress, trying to basically rally support from the European colonial powers to support the Jewish state in like 1890 or something. So for all that they talk now about like Israel, oh, we're decolonizing it. We're decolonizing this area because they think the Arabs colonized them, even though Palestinians, obviously DNA argument is not what we should be playing on, but Palestinians are part descendant of the Arabs from, but in general, they're the most of what their lineage is from that area, is from the area of Palestine, going back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And because what happened during the Arab conquest is the local populations, like the Berbers in North Africa, were Arabized, but that didn't mean that they were 100% Arab. And that's why, but a common Israeli talking point is that they are just like Arabs, like from Saudi Arabia, like Arabians, and therefore they colonized them, and then by taking the land of Israel, they are decolonizing it, and that's a lot of their rhetoric now. But back in the day, when they were actually gearing up to do that in the early Zionist theory, they saw it as a colonialist project. The foundation of Israel as a colonialist project. They're building a colony in Palestine for themselves.
Oh, am I muted? I'm glad I'm not
No.
on mute. But I mean, since we have two viewers, I mean, one of the things that I like looking at old papers is that Zionists in the past were like a lot more honest. Like they were just really, really honest about it. Hold on, like I could, you know, click share the seven stack. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Oh
you
yeah.
see what have native highlighted? The I from
Yeah.
I,
My readers have a general idea of the history of colonization in other countries. I suggest that they consider all the precedents with which they are acquainted and see whether there is one solitary instance of any colonization being carried on with the consent of the native population. There is no such precedent. So basically, they're in
yeah, like
this.
yeah, like they refer to they actually refer to the Palestinians as the native, population. You know,
Yeah. There can be no voluntary agreement between ourselves and the Palestine Arabs, not now nor in the prospective future. Not because I want to hurt the moderate Zionists. I do not believe they will be hurt, except for those who are born blind. They realize now it is utterly impossible to obtain the voluntary consent of the Palestine Arabs for converting Palestine from an Arab country into a country with a Jewish majority. That is literal ethnic cleansing rhetoric.
they were just so honest. Like in a way, you gotta appreciate, the honesty here. You gotta appreciate
Yes.
how blatantly honest about it. You
Yeah.
know.
I wish they were still so honest with what they are saying now, because now they have to play it sneaky. They have to be like, oh, we're actually a decolonial concept. Zionism is decolonizing Jewish identity or whatever. But that's in complete disagreement with what you guys have been saying.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this guy's name is Jabotinsky. He is seen as the father of the Likud party that Netanyahu is a part of, and he is, well, obviously a Zionist, but he's like, like he viewed that the native population is the problem. you know.
Yeah. And if you hear like what Netanyahu talked about and like that, I don't know if you saw the video on that Trump posted on Truth Social of like where Gaza was turned into like American place. Um like with American hotels, and he has this like it's like an AI video that he posted of like an American colonized Gaza, and he has himself lying on the beach with Netanyahu next to him and like Trump Hotel and everything. That and like what they support is in effect um this very ethnic cleansing of like we'll just move the Palestinians out of their home, just like bulldoze them and then like take it for uh it's like this is like for all like what you and I have talked of like the far right and what they talk about and how they have to use like covert language and whatever. They basically just spell it out.
Mhm.
In Israel, it's just spelled out. It's only for when they talk to the West or when they talk to other countries that they have to kind of dress it up all like, oh, we're just protecting ourselves. We want to just do our thing. Like,
Yeah, I know. Like, people have no idea how explicit and how blatant, things are in Israel. Like, there are things that I don't think I could get away with sharing on YouTube. Like, the things that I share so far are things that I could share on YouTube. But okay, let's just say that Israelis tend to compare Palestinians to various wild animals, and even going so far as to comparing Palestinians to various insects.
mm-hmm. Oh
Like
yeah,
it's just yeah, it's just that explicit. Like it is a racism. Like if you are white, you would never get away with saying this about a black person. If you are white, you would never get away with saying this about a black person. You wouldn't even get away with saying this about an Arab person as a white person, But you would see, Israelis comparing, Palestinians to a wide range of insects.
yeah, yeah. They just in that far right atmosphere of Israel. Like if you think of the Israeli political spectrum, obviously the far right has power in Israel. The left wing are like the labor Zionists are more like two-state solution kind of people, kind of like Ethan Klein from H3H3. That's kind of his worldview. Um, uh, but that's not. They don't have as much power. They're kind of that's kind of the uh, idea of maybe the administration in the 90s before Netanyahu took power, like when they were still when they were having negotiations with Yasser Arafat about like establishing a two-state solution. But all that's been thrown out the window. Like Netanyahu's like, we're out. We're going to war with these people. We're gonna expand Israel. We're gonna take their land, and a lot of them. I forget what the guy's name is. Is it like Ben Gvir or something?
Oh,
He,
Ben Gavir,
he
yeah, I know who he's talking about.
yeah, he wants to literally like annex Syria, take over Syria, like the land of Syria,
Yeah,
and
yeah, like
Jordan.
yeah, like he actually wants to build a greater Israel, but it gets even more shocking when you really realize that the U.S. government knew back in like the 1940s. Because okay, people should really look into what's his name, like General George C. Marshall. He like lived during the 1940s and whatnot, and he issues. He was like, I refuse to recognize Israel. And this was back when they were debating. Like, this was back when the United States was debating whether or not it should recognize Israel. And there was an issue between General George C. Marshall and Clifford, because Clifford told the president he should recognize the state of Israel. So, like, hey, the Russians might recognize it, and you want the United States to recognize Israel before the Russians do. And George C. Marshall was like, you do not want to recognize Israel because it's like okay, there's like what's it called, the Joint Committee, no, the Joint Staff Committee or the Joint Staff Committee or whatever. No, it's like the Joint Chiefs of Staffs Committee. And, they realize that Israel is not going to be happy with what's it called, the Belfort Agreement. That Israel isn't going to be happy. That it's going to continue to try to expand and expand. And as it expands, do you know what they're going to do? They're going to take America down with it. They're not just going to expand. That, while Israel is expanding, they're going to jeopardize American security because of their insatiable appetite to get more land. Yeah, like
Yeah.
you really do like seeing this, taking effect, because they clearly do not respect us or care about us, because they spy on us very aggressively. Like Newsweek covered it, The Intercept covered it. Like, Israel spies on us very aggressively. Like, they actually treats us more like an enemy states would.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Like there are a lot of Israeli eyes on just like on America because I think it's because they want to make sure that their influence is not being questioned. And like, if you when you see like what Trump's administration right now is doing to the student protesters or on campus, like they're setting all these like laws of like, if you're here on a student visa, you'll get deported if you participate in a protest for Palestine. You're not allowed to wear any masks. You're not allowed to do this and this and that. And like just putting a lot of like I think it's a clear attempt to control speech for like all people talk that they're for all of the like right wingers, free speech they were talking about was their cardinal issue, like the fundamental thing that they believed in back in 2017. The guy that they got elected now is trying to control speech on behalf of a foreign country. Why is he doing that?
Yeah, I noticed that, a bunch of the people who cared, and I hate to say it, but Tyler Preston is one of them, unfortunately. Like, where, Tyler Preston, he really cared about free speech. But then it's like when it comes to, Israel, he doesn't really seem to care about it.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not the only person that caught him out. Like, there's this one guy, he was, a viewer of Tyler Preston since he was a teenager. And he told me that, that he really liked it. He really respected Tyler, and that Tyler influenced him as a teenager. But then, because Tyler doesn't care about free speech when it comes to criticizing Israel, that's what caused them to lose respect for him.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's exposed a lot of like logical or just inconsistency in principle for a lot of these people, like Ben Shapiro. He is Ben Shapiro is like Tyler in that respect. I mean, different because Ben Shapiro is a Jewish person who is, I think he lived in Israel. and like I don't know if he served in the IDF, but neither here nor there really. He's very much. I know he's an Israeli citizen. Um,
I did not know that. I did not know that Ben Shapiro was an Israeli citizen.
yeah, I believe so. They, I would, I would be surprised if he wasn't, because is Ben Shapiro an Israeli citizen?
Yeah, Google it because I would like to get into that because I'm actually surprised. I'm actually surprised by that. Not too
Yeah,
surprised. I mean, not too surprised. Not like, oh my god, but you know, um,
yeah. I mean, oh,
because it's like I have bought a few of his books, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like I've only read one book completely, and I have read, another one, but it's like I was under an impression that he lived in California either all his life or at least most of his life.
yeah.
Well, what did you
Is
find?
is
Did you
is
find it?
Ben Shapiro an Israeli citizen? I know his wife is Israeli. Um, so I don't know if they would give him citizen.
Well, I mean, yeah, if he has an Israeli wife, then he would definitely get automatic citizenship. Well, then again, being that he's Jewish, he would automatically get a Israeli
Yeah,
citizenship.
yeah. That's great. That's quite something that they like. Obviously, they have the birthright trip concept, which I think is supposed to make Jews born in other areas of the world feel connected to Israel so they can rely on their support. Um,
Only to mistreats the Ethiopian Jews.
yeah, yeah. It's like,
Is Ben Shapiro an Israeli citizen?
According to Simple Wikipedia, Benjamin Aaron Shapiro, born January 15, 1984, is an American lawyer, businessman, columnist, and conservative commentator.
Did you hear that?
yeah. I mean, hmm,
According to my phone says that Ben Shapiro is completely American.
yeah. Okay, I see.
Oh, I don't think he's really like I don't think he has a dual citizenship. It looks like he's just an American citizen, and that's it. I like like I have bought one of his books, and from buying his book, I was under the impression that he lived in California all his life, and at least from watching some of his YouTube videos, I was under the impression that he's only visited Israel a few times, but he's never like lived there, and I don't think he has any intention of permanently relocating over there.
Yeah. Okay, my bad. Um, I think there. I remember when Roseanne Barr had the controversy where she got fired from her show after she said that one of the someone in Obama's cabinet who was like black was like made some comment about Planet of the Apes or something. Um, and that got her fired, and she said she was going to move to Israel sometime after that. And I don't know if she ever did.
I don't think so. I think
And
Rose Simbar still, like as far as I'm aware, she still lives in America. I think she's just, I don't know.
yeah,
I think she has some mental illness or going senile or something.
oh, big time, big time, big time. I um I saw her at one of the conservative conventions recently, or like a clip of it, and she's shrieking like a maniac. I mean, that's kind of her thing anyway. But um, Another thing I saw about some moving to Israel was, that movie about Freddie Mercury, Bohemian Rhapsody. Um,
No, I don't know what you're talking about there.
there was a film director named Bryan Singer. I think one of my first tweets ever, where I was like, why do people keep hiring him? But he was like, he's been in the film business for a long time. I think he directed one of the X-Men movies. I could be wrong. But he was like he's been accused for his whole career of like sexual improprieties with like underage, like teenager boys. So, and I read on his Wikipedia page recently, because I always go through on these like Wikipedia rabbit hole things, that he moved to Israel and is like making movies in Israel now.
I'm not surprised because so many of our I don't think YouTube would allow me to use the P word, but so many of our I don't want to
PD,
say map, but still it's the best word we have. But they moved
PDF
to
file.
Israel. Yeah, they moved to Israel.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that headline a lot, and I didn't look into it, but maybe there's some validity to it. It wouldn't surprise me.
Like even the Israeli press covered that so many American minor attracted people that deserve to be use your imagination there, but even the Israeli press is like, yeah, a lot of American people who are interested in underage children, they take advantage of the law of return.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me. And like that is kind of something that Israel systemically off, or like what they offer, because like if any American Jewish person or person with who is of Jewish heritage from like New York or wherever can just come there, move there, become a citizen, become part of Israeli, society. Then if they're facing charges in America or something, they can just whoop. I'm Israeli now.
Yeah, it really sucks. Like why do you want our PDF files? Why do you even want them? Like why?
Yeah,
Um,
it's just because they. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's something like they want just more people, so they can just have more of an excuse to displace Palestinians off their land or whatever.
I
Um,
wouldn't be surprised, in all honesty. I wouldn't be surprised. Like
yeah,
if it's like, more people so that they could displace, the Palestinians. Um, but like I do have hope that our side is winning. And let me show you why I believe our side is winning. I need to stop screen sharing and show this other thing that I've seen. Okay, let me just stop screen sharing this. Stop, exit out of that. Let me figure out which tab that I want to go through because I saw something. Um, Reading the Times of Israel, and oh man, it just pops right up. Okay, pops right up. Okay, hold on. Okay, so let's present screen share this. Do-do-do-do. Have so many tabs open. Share that. Okay. Israel looks like Israel is heading to a civil war.
wow.
Yeah, and it gets like okay. This is the part I found interesting. Today there are demonstrations. Then a car drives through them. Like okay, so there were demonstrations against Netanyahu or protests against Netanyahu. Then a car drives through them and runs over somebody. He's referring to an incident of an anti-Netanyahu protest in Jerusalem on Wednesday when a driver rammed into a protester. Like, so Israelis are like killing other. Well, I don't know if the person live. Well, it says injured him, not killed. So it's like, okay, Israelis are now driving cars into other Israelis now.
Yeah, that is insane. Like,
Like, do you know what makes this, even more interesting? Because some people might rush and go, "Oh, come now, you probably do the same thing in America." But Israel is like the size of New Jersey.
yeah,
Israel is basically the size of New Jersey. Not that, but like, it's like um many people, because of this ongoing war, or well, it's actually a genocide, many of them have been leaving in droves. Many
yeah,
people are leaving Israel permanently, not coming back because this is negatively impacting their mental health. Like there is okay, like I bookmarked a tweet that this genocide is costing Israel billions, not
oh,
millions, billions would be, because
yeah,
again, workers are fleeing. They don't want to live in a country that's constantly attacked. Then it's like people are boycotting Israeli goods. So it's like you had to think about people boycotting Israeli goods because of this, which is costing Israel money. And then think about how much money Israel makes from tourism. Israel gets this real money from tourism. But it's like, well, people, like even Zionists do not want to, tour, going a tour, like, because there are people who are Zionists, they love going to Israel, but because of the ongoing, bombardments,
yeah,
people are not in the mood to tour Israel, but that's how to get their money. Tourism is like really profitable. Like it generates a lot of money, but they're not getting the income. And it's like the longer and longer this progresses, it could send Israel into a state of bankruptcy.
yeah. That is definitely um, that is definitely a possibility, and I think as you said about like Israelis who are fleeing now, I don't blame them either because it's like to be someone in Israel, to be an Israeli person who has compassion for Palestinians in a society where it is like billions of dollars go into this like this machine of like hatred and like um of like going against Palestinians and the far right narrative on Palestine, it is just like you would have to be up against a lot to maintain like the kind of humanity of Palestinian people. And I think honestly, like that
Are you
would
still there?
maybe make
Oh,
me consider just oh that would make me consider like if I were in that position, like should I just like leave? Should I just leave this country entirely? I can't be around this. I can't be in the society that is contributing to this.
I don't think that they're leaving because they have a guilty conscience. The
I,
Houthis, like the Houthis have been bombing Israel, and but again, Israel is the size of New Jersey, so it's kind of like they need more and more people to enlist in the IDF. Like, Israel has been using now reservists, so it's like sometimes you would see like an old person, or not even just an old person. You would see like a morbidly obese person. Like, you would see somebody who is like 500 pounds, that is like, well, you still need to fight. You might be 500 pounds, but you need to still go out and fight. Like in America, being an American, I cannot imagine sending somebody who is 500 pounds to go fight, because they're clearly not military ready. But
well, maybe
it's
they.
like, because Israel is the size of New Jersey, they need people in the reserves to fight. They need the elderly to fight. And then it reaches the point, where oh, what was I thinking again? Okay, there's this group. Okay, I'm not good at Hebrew. Surprise, surprise. But there is this group. It's called the Haredi group. I'm not sure, but they
Yeah.
are the ultra Orthodox Jews in Israel's. And that Netanyahu is like, okay, you do not have to serve at all for the IDF, but according to Israeli judges, they do have to serve in the IDF. So there's this battle going on of whether Orthodox Jews should serve in the IDF or not, because according to the Israeli Supreme Court, hey, the Israelis have voted. They want the ultra Orthodox Jews to serve in the military, but the ultra Orthodox, have been using Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir to figure out ways to get around serving in the IDF. So that means, like, more elderly people dying, and more overweight people dying, and because some people don't want to serve in the IDF at all.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize that, but that is that is a crazy detail. So who are they? They're the Haredi Jews.
I mean, as you know, my Hebrew is not good, but you could probably find it if ultra Orthodox Jews refuse to serve in the IDF. You could probably find it if you Google that.
Okay, ultra Orthodox Jews against serving in IDF. In June 2024, the Supreme Court of Israel declared any continued exemption of IDF's conscription unlawful. The ruling has caused officials in the ultra-Orthodox Shas party to urge potential conscripts in July 2024 to ignore any call-ups from the IDF in protests. During at least one protest, protesters attacked both law enforcement and the vehicle of Minister Yitzhak Goldknopf. In July 2024, the army began drafting 3,000 Haredi men. In mid-November 2024, it was announced that Israeli military officials had issued 1,126 arrest warrants for ultra-Orthodox Jewish conscripts who had not responded to drafting orders. Those who continued to not cooperate could be declared a draft dodger and banned from foreign travel and risk of arrest. Where does it? Let's see where Netanyahu stands on that. Netanyahu.
maybe you can find something if you put Netanyahu and or ultra orthodox together.
Ooh, Netanyahu coalition jeopardized over ultra-Orthodox exemption from army? Oh, damn it. I have to pause my ad blocker. Da, 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 da. One of Israel's most divisive domestic issues has really... Okay, this article is from March 18th, 2025, so pretty recent. One of Israel's most divisive domestic issues has reared itself again to challenge Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after a group in the ruling coalition said it would bring the government down unless it exempts ultra-Orthodox Jews from army service. Some members of United Torah Judaism, one of two ultra-Orthodox Jewish parties in the coalition, said in a letter that they would vote against the budget if the government did not pass a new law formalizing exemptions for religious students. If this matter is once again sidelined or delayed for any reasons, we will not be able to continue as partners in the coalition, said the March 6th letter signed by Housing Ministry and Party Chairman Yitzhak Goldknopf and two others. So he was one of the guys who got hit in the protest. The government must pass the budget by the end of the month or call snap elections. United Torah Judaism holds several seats in the Knesset, Israel parliament. It is too early to predict the consequences. Netanyahu, Israel's longest-serving prime minister, is a proven master at smoothing over disagreements in his coalitions. An ultranationalist group that quit the government over the ceasefire in Gaza in January announced on Tuesday it was returning. But pollster Mitchell Barak, who, like Barack Obama, who worked for Netanyahu in the 1990s, said this time ultra-Orthodox politicians appeared unwilling to compromise and that the prime minister might have to look outside the coalition for support to pass the budget, an extraordinary step. He's going to have to look okay. The military strained. In Israel, military service is mandatory at age 18, after which Israelis become reservists liable to be called up for training and deployment. But dating back to Israel's founding in 1948, it made an exemption for ultra-Orthodox communities known as Haredim, whose young men mainly devote their lives to studying religious texts in academies known as yeshivot. Those communities were initially small but have grown rapidly in the following decades. According to government data, there are 1.4 million Haredim, accounting for 14% of the population, deepening resentment among other Israelis who were conscripted. In 2017, the Supreme Court ruled that the exemption was unconstitutional. So it's like a law that goes back to like when Israel was founded, but now they want to overturn it. But they're protesting it now to bring down the... But this was in March, so they said by the end of the month. What happened? What is it?
Yeah, because it's like Netanyahu, he needs the supports of the ultra orthodox Jews, or his coalition would go down. So he needs to get give the ultra orthodox Jews special treatment.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, quite a pickle for him. Or my God, what is... Okay, so they're the United Torah Judaism. United Torah Judaism is a Haredi religious conservative political alliance in Israel. The alliance, consisting of Agudat Yisrael and Degel HaTorah, was fully formed in 1992 in order to maximize Ashkenazi Haredi representation in the Knesset. So their ideology is Ashkenazi Haredi interests, religious conservatism, social democracy. That's weird. I don't know why that belongs there. Haredi non-Zionism, and so they're economically center-left and they're socially right-wing, which I assume also means right-wing on like military policy, or like for like occupation of Palestine policy. given that they're in Netanyahu's coalition.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, I remember what I want to say. I remember this is another thing. I had agreed with this guy that says that he believes that Israel is going to head to a civil war. I will put him back on swing share because, okay, again, Israel is not America. We are big, we're huge, we're pretty much an empire. But it's like Israel,
Yes.
it's not built the way America is built. It's not built the way America is built. Like you see, like let me try Control F. Like now, Netanyahu is alienating some of the Israelis by complaining about a leftist deep state. You know what I'm saying? And for us Americans, we may not think anything of it because Trump complains about a leftist deep states. But think about
Yeah.
a country the size of New Jersey that has all of, constantly being bombed, and you're talking about a leftist deep states. And there are people in Israel complaining that Israel no longer has a democracy anymore. Israel no longer has a democracy. Like, hold on, like here it is. Like there is authority there is authority to dismiss, but no grounds for dismissal. He elaborated, saying he would also strike down the firing of Attorney General I don't know how to pronounce this Hebrew name. Basically, Netanyahu has fired the attorney general. Basically, he either already fired the attorney general or he's set to fire the attorney general. And there's another person that Netanyahu fired. I wonder if I could find the person if I do like this. I think his name is Bar. I think his name is Bar. I'm not sure. Not this Barack person, but a different person with Bar in their name. Um, okay, the former Chief of Justice explained he believes the ousting of Barr from the role in the middle of his term is illegitimate because of the position of the Shin Bet chief is not a role of confidence with the political echelon. Instead, the person in the job is meant to carry out the role as explicitly written in legislation. So basically, um, to catch people up, that haven't been paying attention to the Israeli press, Netanyahu fired the people who are investigating him, which is unheard of. That is wild,
Yeah.
because, okay, Netanyahu is under investigation for bribery, fraud, and corruption. And he
And that is
fired
the
people.
definition of corruption. To fire the people who are investigating you for corruption,
Yeah,
among other. Oh my
exactly,
god.
exactly. He's been facing charges for bribe, corruption, and fraud, and he fired the people, who is investigating him, and and they're asking him all of these questions to make him feel uncomfortable, and he's been doing everything he's could. He's been, stripping a bunch of people of their, power. Basically, he's turning himself into a dictator of Israel.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
he is literally turning himself into the dictator of Israel.
Oh my god. I mean, how long has he been in power? I think he's been in power since like the 1990s. So
Yeah,
it
it's true,
really,
but it's true. However, from what I hear, he was actually more I don't want to call that guy a centrist because he is a war hawk. So I don't want to call him a centric because he has been pushing America to go to war with all of Israel's enemies. So like he is a war hawk. So I don't want to call him a centrist, but his views were more palatable to the Israeli quotes unquote left. Basically, the Israeli quotes unquote left loved Netanyahu back in the day. However, he has swung far to the right. The Times of Israel, they are heavily Zionist. They are heavily a Zionist. They would agree with Netanyahu that there's no such thing as an innocent Palestinian. However, the articles are becoming more and more highly aggressive against Netanyahu. Like they are now basically reporting articles calling Netanyahu Adolf Hitler. Like Jews are now saying that Netanyahu is like Adolf Hitler.
Whew. Yeah, I mean, if the shoe fits,
I know, right? I know, right? They are, it's reaching the point where it seems like the Times of Israel, it seems like they hate Netanyahu. It seems like they're reaching the point where hate Netanyahu. They hate Palestinians too. They hate Palestinians, but it seems like they really hate Netanyahu and they want they want to get rid of that guy. And the reason
Yeah, I think.
why the reason why I follow the Times of Israel is you do not hear this in America at all. Like, in America, if you read CNN, you would think that Netanyahu is, I don't know, a guy who's like doing what he has to do. Like, CNN will put a positive spin on Netanyahu. He's just doing what he has to do. But, in Israel, they seem to flat
Yeah.
out say the guy, or it's like, okay, there is another thing that makes me think that Israel is on the verge of collapse. Hold on, let me find it right quick. Right-wing Israelis join protest against Netanyahu. There's these articles that show up like two or the Times of Israel is talking about it. Jewish telegraphic agencies talking about it. Hold on, let's screen share. Okay. Hold on, screen share. As Netanyahu fires Shin Bet's chief, right-wing Israelis are joining mass protests against the prime minister. It's like,
Oh
like when you are so far right that not only does the left hate you or as far left as Israel could ever be, but when even right-wingers think that basically you're Adolf Hitler, like they just put Hitler into
you
office.
know you've lost it. Well, I hope they. I hope. I hope they overthrow him. I hope.
Yeah,
He,
exactly. It's like there are right wing Israelis that are like, they hate the Palestinians, but they are reaching the point where they can't stand Netanyahu because he is just
sick
that
of this
far right.
bastard.
He is just
Yeah.
that far right because, again, it's like he fired the person who is investigating him for corruption. He is turning, Israel into like a dictatorship. And like even the right wing Israelis is like, okay, we don't actually want to live, in a dictatorship where it's going to be Netanyahu for life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, Israel is collapsing. And, like I read this article years ago. I'm not sure if it was by Hararez or 972 plus. Both of them are left wing Israeli news outlets, but they predicted the downfall of Israel. Basically, they said that the biggest problem with Israel is that Israel is more focused with giving Americans propaganda about how great Israel is instead of having an genuinely, authentically great country.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wow. Yeah. I see it. And like just the way that they the legitimation of Israel as a country is like very is very based on like they're it's like speaking to someone in America and being like these people in this other country, they're just like you. Their army, their army is fighting for people like you against people who are not like you. And it relies on like all this like kind of pressure and kind of a manipulation of like suspending your moral sense of like ethics and like to be like if they if they had the power to they would do this to us and it's just like cultivating kind of a like back in the day people would always talk about like tribalism and like the us versus them it's a lot of that kind of idea um and then I think was brought up to me like with I don't know if you know H3H3 Productions.
You know, are you talking about Ethan Klein?
Yeah, Ethan Klein. His wife Hila was obviously she's Israeli, and she was in the IDF, and um, they met at a Holocaust museum. I think while he was on a tour in Israel, like on his birthright trip. Um, and apparently in Israel they have like a program for the like IDF people that accompany them on birthday trips. I don't know if I'm getting that getting anything wrong. It's like um kind of to woo Americans, American Jews to make them fall in love and so that they'll stay. And then they'll fight for Israel and beyond um become citizens and like, yada yada yada. Apparently that's a thing. I will have to like look for sources on it, but that's what I saw about and because Ethan is an Israeli citizen, his children are Israeli. I mean, and like I think he lived. I don't know if he. I don't know how long he lived there. I think he like dodged the IDF draft, so ultimately, it didn't work. The propaganda mission. I don't know, but that was something that I was like, that's very crazy.
Yeah, but I think that the article that I read years ago, either by her RS or 972 plus, it hit the nail on the head when it says what would cause the Israeli society to collapse is that they're more concerned about having as much propaganda to convince America that Israel is a great country worth supporting than taking any real measures to make Israel an authentically great country worth supporting, where you don't need to where you don't need propaganda anymore, where, propaganda is completely unnecessary, because it's truly great. Because it's like, think of it this way: the Japanese don't need, propaganda to convince Americans that Japan is great. Or, the British don't need propaganda to convince America that England is great. The Canadians do not need propaganda to convince America that Canada is great. You know, these
Yeah.
countries, are seen, as great because of all of their accomplishments.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, it feels like kind of a manipulation of perception, I would say. And like, it is like very propagandistic, and all this other stuff they like tie into it, like loyalties and like um just like it's all like window dressing kind of, or like, because I wouldn't be able to name an Israeli policy that I think is good. Or like uh an Israeli movie that I really like. I wouldn't be able to name it. Or like something to come out of Israel that I'm like, that's amazing. That makes me love Israel. No, not a thing that I can think of.
Yeah, no, yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Israel, I don't know. They seem racist, but racist even to the point where it's just weird and strange, because it reaches all like, you disagree with me, but you're a Jew, that's the reason why it could get so trippy reading the text of Israel. Because, okay, basically there is this Jewish film director, and this Jewish film director gave a speech criticizing Israel. And no, I'm not talking about No Other Land. No, I'm not talking about No Other Land. He actually made a movie about the Holocaust, actually. So there's this Jewish guy who won an Oscar about a year ago. Yeah, a year ago he won an Oscar for making a movie about like the Holocaust. Like, it was like in 2024, I believe. And he criticized, how Israel is treating, the Palestinians. And it's like, you disagree with me, but you're Jewish. Like, wow, you are a Jew. You're saying this? Wow,
You're a
you're a Jew.
Jew.
You're saying this? It's like, it's weird because, even white supremacists don't talk like that. Like, even like, people like Nick Fuentes or Richard Spencer, or Richard Spencer doesn't talk like, wait a minute, you're white and you're disagreeing with me, but you're white. I can't believe that a white person is disagreeing with me. Like, you
Yeah, they don't just expect the agreement because of, you're a race traitor. Well, I guess I have seen that, but it doesn't hold as much sway as like you're criticizing how we treat Palestinian people. You're How do you do that as a Jew? You're a traitor to your people? Are they? I think one of the words that they like to say is like capo, like as like a slur for Jews that they consider to be betraying the people, which is like, I think tied to like a Holocaust story, that there was someone named Capo who like apparently sold out other Jews, and that's why they use that as like a slur for basically to call someone a race traitor from the Jewish perspective.
Yeah, but I mean, even with the word race traitor, I don't really see why people using that term all that much. Like even with Richard Spencer and I don't know, Babe Alaska, was it Ethan Ralph? What's his name? Ethan Ralph. You don't really
Mhm.
see the word race traitor used all that often. Not even in right wing circles, do they? Used and not that, but right wing circles, even among the far rights, is becoming a more mixed race.
Yes.
It's kind of a lot like how I don't know, like Kanye West is far right now, and he is like a hero to a bunch of yeah, it's weird because it's like now there are people who want to use the N word all day, but they love Kanye. They hate
Yeah.
race missing, but they love Kanye. And it's like, now it's like even the far right is becoming more
Diverse.
interracial.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are black people that the far right loves. It's surreal. In one hand they're like Hitler is based and Hitler has some points and race missing is wrong. They say, I love Kanye. I love Kanye so
Yeah.
much. And it's like,
Kanye's our guy.
yeah, Kanye's our guy. He is our hero. He is, our champion at a cost. And it's like, okay, so you are a bunch of white supremacists with a black hero.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. I mean, that's really a win for diversity if you think about
Yeah,
it. That even
like even the far right is diverse now. Like the far
yeah.
right, and like you have a Mexican. Okay, you have a Mexican and a black guy saying that they love Hitler.
I mean, it's crazy because like the right wing and like conservatism is about like kind of in general that they're trying to conserve something from the past. And in that sense that they're not the ones who move things forward, but it's like they that they are still so affected by like that times are changing that like the very diversity that they are trying to oppose is already like part of them now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, think about the mixed race people who are part of the far right. Like, there's this one guy who's far right. I forgot what his name was, but he was like half Asian. And it's like, wait a minute, you're far right, but you're half Asian. And like, Ethan Ralph, he had like a wife that was from India. Like, I think he had a wife from India, if I recall correctly. And
I
then
think
Ethan
so.
Ralph, huh?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, Nick Fuentes is half Mexican, and now like Kanye West is part of the alt rights or far rights, and it's like, okay, and not only that, but if you pay attention to the people who are a lot like, yeah, keep the white race pure, the next thing you see, like, oh, but we love Larry Elder and we love Thomas Sarwell, like, yeah, and it's like, okay, this is just strange because you want an ethno state, so you want to keep the white race pure, but now you're celebrating, Larry Elder and Kanye West. It's like that. It's just, it becomes highly surreal because like you're living in a
Yeah.
Twilight Zone. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what I that's it's
I mean, it's
very
basically
weird.
very weird. It's like multiracial white supremacy.
Yeah. It's like if you do finally get the ethno state, can Kanye come? Can he just come and crash there, sometimes? Like yeah.
it's like weird. It's like you want an ethno states, but Kanye West is your guy, and you want to spend time with Kanye West. And it's kind of like you also are like like Thomas Sorwell and Larry Elder and even Candace Owens. You're like, yeah, Candace Owens. It's like, hey, she has springs and some sort of sense, but it's like, okay, we also want that white ethno state. It's like, okay, so again, it's like, okay, if you do establish the white ethno states, are you gonna make exceptions like Kanye West and Candace Owens and like Larry Elder? Like, are you gonna like go like you are an honorary Aryan?
Yeah. The honorary Aryans.
Yeah, honorary Aryan. Yeah, because I remember that there's this white supremacist, who loved Hitler. She thought Hitler was a great guy, and she says like, "Hey, black people who are our size, they could be honorary Aryans." So,
Aw. That heartwarming. And like that's almost something out of like a drag skit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It kind of reminds me of a Drake video where have you seen Nazi inflation?
I think so. Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Drag. I It's been so long since I've watched drag, unfortunately, but I used to like have like the notifications on for every video that he would watch, that I would like first when Centricide was being made, I would like watch every episode.
Yeah, same. I don't watch Drake like I used to watch him. Like there was a time where I would just be like been watching every single episode of Centricide, but then it's kind of a lot like I don't know. I don't know what happened. I just
Yeah.
haven't been all that interested in his newer stuff, because I think he really shined when he talked about, anti-centrism, like where he did, his Nazi character, then his income character, and
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's I see a lot of the stuff that he like would satirize, and it's becoming like it's like this like Simpsons effect, how they say that like the Simpsons predict all these things in the future. It's like some of the stuff that he's talked about has just become like how things are now.
yeah. Yeah, like I was thinking about that too. It's kind of a lot like you see more, agreements, from the far left. I don't want to say the far left, but you see, far more agreements, with the left and unfortunately the far right when it comes to Israel. But like somebody like, Tyler Preston, who is a strong centrist, is like, oh no, Israel is great and wonderful, and it's Palestine is center wrong, and people should be deported. Trump is trying for deporting those people, so it is like I would see what's his name, Owen Benjamin, like, and Owen Benjamin, he's highly progressive, but he's like, he ended up making a tweets like, because Pierce Morgan and Tucker Carlson were arguing. Pierce Morgan, who's the centrist, is pro-Israel, and then Tucker Carlson, who's like, right wing, it's like, he's speaking on Palestinian rights, and it's like, Owen Benjamin's like, I can't believe that when it comes, from the centrist and the right winger, I'm agreeing with the right winger instead of the centrist. You would think that the left and the center would have the most in common. But instead,
Yeah,
you end
because
up seeing, right wingers like you would see Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson saying we should care about Palestinian rights. Then you see the left, but then in the centrist, it's like no, we stand by Israel, and Israel needs to finish this war, and we need to give Israel as much weapons as possible. So it puts you in this uncomfortable position where you're agreeing with right wingers, and you kind of feel like you have to because the center left, like the Democrats would actually side with Republicans in ousting progressives, which ends up being kind of scary. It's like, did you really just team up with Republicans to oust the progressive because you do not like how they are pro-Palestine? But you would see that. You would see like, people who are Democrats, demonizing, Elon Omar, and like you would see Democrats who wants to get rid of Omar because she's critical of Israel. You know.
yeah, yeah, it is quite messed up times we live in where like the political spectrum is like it's so hard to tell the full story from it now because it's like you're on the left. What does that mean? Are you are you in favor of Israel? Are you against Israel? You're in the center. Does that mean you like you like everything Israel's doing? Or on the right, are you it's like
Like, have you seen
there's
Shrek's? Have you seen Shrek's map? Like, like where he's like the far left are pro-Palestine, but it's so almost to the center, but not quite. Like, it's somewhat like because you see some more of the left, but then with the pro-Palestine right, it's definitely like the alt rights, and it's like the centrists, like the center left and the center rights would team up with each other to fight the radicals. So it's kind of a lot like you would see, people on the center left team up with the center right to get rid of, the progressives who are pro-Palestine. And, you would see people like Jake Shields, promoting Owen Benjamin because Owen Benjamin is in favor of the Palestinians. And then you see people on the right being like, hey, this leftist is correct, we should, or you see, what's his name again? That guy who used to be in the Young Turks, the old guy, Jimmy Dore,
oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, you would see him speaking with Jake Shields, like, "Hey, I'm a communist," and like, "Hey," like because Jimmy Dore is still a communist. You see him having the right winger Jake Shields. So I'm just gonna be like, "Hey, this guy is a communist, and I'm to the right, but we're gonna team up and." It's like a secret.
Yeah. Gotta eliminate the center.
We gotta eliminate the citrus.
Yeah. The central scum.
Yeah, we gotta eliminate the citrus scum.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh. Yeah, I mean, Jimmy Dore's been at it for a while. He's been eliminating the center for a while. I think he was like interviewing the like Boogaloo Boys or whatever. I don't know what the
Oh yeah, the
I don't know what.
boogaloo.
Yeah. Oh my god. I don't know when he like started going. I don't know if it was when he left the Young Turks or when it like because I remember like it sent like the kind of bread tube sphere into kind of a tailspin as he started doing these like things, which I think was during like as the like protests in America too was happening. Um, I mean, all this was happening at once, and he was like the term that like bread two people were using was like class reductionism, like them, like people who are all about like the class issues and they're left wing on this economic kind of stuff, or like socialist leaning on economics, but are like not prioritizing the like social issue, which is kind of like um I mean that's already like a very like thorny topic, because to what extent are we is to what extent are we talking about the social issues or not talking about them? Because it's like a lot of the far right of this day are more economically left wing, but like very like far right on social issues or like race issues maybe. And
Yeah, yeah, because it's kind of a lot like, Jake Shields, he ends up being interesting because it's like, he has left-wing views. Like he wants universal health care, but then he's calling gay people homophobic slurs, and like he's using slurs, and he is really backwards with women's rights. He thinks all women are dots, but then he's like, okay, but I would like to have universal health care. So he ends
oh
up
my
being like
god.
on the left on issues, like, he's like moving further on the left on economic issues, but he's, on the right on cultural issues. I don't know to what extent. I don't know his views on Black people. I don't know any of his views on Black people because he spends most of his time talking about Palestine, and he even
Yeah.
brings up so many, like, because when I found the Jake shows, I've had mixed feelings because on one hand he's bringing up all of these things, that I never heard of, or he would have video clips that I've never seen it before, and I want to help the Palestinians, but I do try to give that, disclaimer, go ahead and retweet it, so that people could see, because the Zionists try to make us seem crazy, or that we're just consuming Hamas propaganda, when really, how is, seeing, the IDF hunting down an ambulance and shooting down an ambulance, how is that Hamas propaganda? How is
Yeah.
a video clip Hamas, propaganda? How are all the, photos and videos? It's like if the photos don't gets you, how about all of the videos? How's that Hamas propaganda?
Yeah, what are we supposed to believe if we can't look to that? Like, are we just supposed to take everything that they say, wholesale? Like everything
And
that the Zionist propaganda says wholesale? Like we can't. Oh my god! If we can't use our eyes and ears, then what are we supposed to just? Mm.
yeah, like I agree with you. Like I absolutely agree with you. Like, it's like I am going to trust my own eyes and ears first. Do you know what this reminds me of? Okay, I don't know if you ever seen the movie Chicago, but basically there is a woman who walked in on her husband who cheated on her with two women at once, so she caught her husband having a threesome, and her husband says, what do you mean two people? I'm in this bed all by myself. And his wife says, but I see two women in bed with you. And the husband says, well, are you going to believe what you see, or are you going to believe what I tell you?
Oh my gosh! Literal gaslighting.
So it's kind of like I believe what I see. I don't believe what the designer tells me.
Yeah.
I believe what I see. If I see, the IDF chasing down an ambulance and blowing it up, I am going to believe what I see, not what the IDF tells me what to think. And it's like the Zionists, like I would see this with Tyler Preston as well. Zionists would take people like at their word, but anti-Zionists, we're going by photos and videos and satellite images, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Photos, videos, satellite images, statistics, like everything, and like every piece of evidence, and then it's just like, oh, but all these reasons that Israel is providing, like, oh, but we're indigenous to the land or something. Oh, but it's in the Bible that we belong.
Yeah,
This
the
is
sad part is, even though Tyler Preston is an atheist, I would see Tyler Preston make, arguments like that. Like they're indigenous to the land, and it's in the Bible, some type of proof that And Bill Maher, who's also an atheist, Bill Maher, who's also an atheist, like if you need to prove that the Jews are indigenous to the land, the Bible, and it's like, okay, well, aren't you an atheist?
oh my gosh.
You know?
Like, yeah. And it's like, okay, sure. We will agree that your great 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 grandpappy was born in Jerusalem or wherever. But why does that mean that you get to come here from freaking Poland and the kick people whose grandparents and great grandparents and everything too who live here off their land? Why should it be yours just because you can say that your however many greats grandfather was here?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of this. I forgot the name of that YouTube channel, but it's ran by. Okay, he's a progressive guy. I think his name. Wait a minute, I remember his name. Bad and Panda. I think his name's Bad and Panda. And he's like,
Oh, bad empanada, yeah.
we do not carry this line of logic for any other group of people. For example, okay, there are Black people in America that did manage to figure out, I think it's Algeria. I'm not sure. I think it's Algeria.
Liberia.
Huh?
Liberia.
Liberia. Okay. There are Black people in America who managed to trace their roots to Liberia. But then, the librarians who never left, they had an uprising against Black America, because even if you can't trace your ancestry to a particular place, you are still a colonizer oppressing the native people, because the moment you're left, that's it, you left. You don't really get to come back unless you want to live among them in harmony. Like if
Yeah.
you are there to live, if you're there to integrate, yeah, if you're there to integrate and assimilate, that's one thing. But you don't get to be, take charge and take control, and.
Exactly. It's like exactly that. It's like, or if like another case is like the Roma, like the Romani people, um, they, the word that they don't like to use is um starts with a G. It's Gypsy.
Gypsies?
Yeah,
Gypsies?
them. Yeah, I think they consider that word offensive, but I don't
I
know.
guess being,
But
I guess being in
their
America,
roots are
because Americas, we have you, I'm pretty sure you heard of the movie The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
yes. Esmeralda, I think, is the character who is
Y-
from that.
Yeah, and like I don't know, being in America, we seen the Hunchback of Notre Dame, when we are like 5 years old, and we see it like when I saw the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I don't know, I probably was 5 or something, and the word gypsy was used quite a few times in that movie. So when you see, when you hear the word gypsy used in a Disney cartoon, it's hard to view it
Yeah,
as I like
an offensive
like
word.
for example, the N word isn't in a Disney cartoon. The N
No.
word, like you wouldn't expect the N word to be in a Disney cartoon. So I always thought that the word gypsy was a safe word to use because it was in a Disney cartoon aimed at, I don't know, 6 year olds.
Yeah, I guess Peter Pan also kind of has that issue going for it. With like the Indians are like the Native American people that they were hanging out with, or they got captured by the Indians, and they got like all this happening. Like Tiger Lily was like captured by. I used to love the movie Peter Pan, so like I watched it like 500 times. But yeah, with the Roma, um, uh, their DNA, I guess, comes from India, but they left India like 700 years ago, or like thousands of years ago. Um, and then they went all throughout like Europe and all through like that area. But if they came back, being that they have this like Indian ancestry, but if they wanted to decided, okay, we're going to start a state in India now, they wouldn't be like right to do that if that meant kicking people who currently live there off their land to carve out that territory for themselves.
I mean, they'll still be colonizers, but
Exactly.
yeah, but like Bad and Panda said, we consider Black people who went back to Liberia colonizers,
Yeah.
and we would still say like, hey, the people from Liberia who never left, who had an uprising against Black Americans, they were correct to do that because you're trying to take over their land. So it's kind of like we need to have this same view when people who like if your ancestor left a land a long time ago, you don't get to get it back, or um a progressive made a comedic point, where a progressive was like, I've converted to Catholicism, and I want to take my birthrights at Rome. I want to kick all of the Italians out of their land. I want to kick all of the Italians out. I want to repossess their homes, you know, and leave them
Yeah.
homeless because it's like I'm Catholic. I want to rename Italy Rome, and let's be honest, Rome is his real name. Like, come now, like Rome was his name. Like how many years ago? So like the people who want to call it Italy are like clearly don't belong there. So I want to kick them out and repossess their lands and just leave them with nowhere to go.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there's no ancestral justification that you can make for colonizing. And like the American Liberians were colonizing. If there was a Romani state in India now, that would be a colonial project. And the original Israeli Zionists considered what they were doing colonizing.
Yeah, even the original Israeli Zionists consider what they were doing colonizing.
Yeah, so it's like now that people are like critical of colonizing, now that people, when they think of colonizing, they're like, that's bad. Only now do they like have to change their angle about it because it's like we're doing this and this and this and that. These people don't belong here. This is our land. It's we're God's chosen people, you know?
Uh, one of the things that I hate about I don't know, Israeli Zionists is that they would tell, okay, they would say one thing to the left and a totally different thing to the right. Like, I do follow people from both the left and the right, and because I follow people from both the left and the right, like the left wing angle would be that Israel is socialist and atheist and pro LGBT, but then you could follow right wingers and it's like no, Israel is actually anti LGBT and they hates the left, and it's like okay. It could only be one or the other. It can't both be true at once. Like I
Yeah.
remember, like Tyler Preston tagged a guy for me to argue with, and then the guy was kind of like, Israel is socialist and Israel is atheist and Israel is pro LGBT, but then you could follow right wingers, and it's like, no, Israel actually hates socialism, and Israel hate, it's actually really religious actually, and Israel is actually, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
oh, it can only
Can
be
you
one.
tell the other guy that? Yeah.
Yeah, it can only be one or the other. It's why I go to the Israeli press to find out the truth. And when I find out the truth, it's like even the Times of Israel would say Israel has a far right government.
Yeah.
It's not even censor rights. The Times of Israel has made something very clear. Israel has a far right government and it's turning into a dictatorship. They did have a democracy, but democracy in Israel is dying, is converting into a full blown dictatorship. I mean,
Mhm.
it's on that road because Netanyahu has, like I already said, fired the people who are investigating him, and he is removing all of his opponents. And he's replacing it with people who love and adore him. So he's making all of these chess moves. So he is trying to sets himself up to be dictator for life.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like the far right like mirror of like like the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro. He's like doing what he's doing, but from a far right perspective instead of a kind of vaguely left wing one. He's like anti-democratic, corrupt, and like very like antagonistic towards like disagreement and everything. Like with his supporter, like Netanyahu supporters, like driving cars into protesters or something.
Oh yeah, driving cars into protesters, and I believe that Israel is imploding. It is imploding because right wingers are joining the left and protesting Netanyahu. Many Jewish people, like that Barack guy. He is saying that democracy in Israel is dying, and not only that, but there is this tone of hopelessness that people have. Like there is this one article, I mean, that I had hold on, let me pull it up because it's like there's this woman, and I don't know, this article reads with a hopeless tone. You could just tell that she is feeling hopeless. Let me see if this is the correct one. Let me see if this is the correct one. Let me control F this. Yeah, this is the correct article. Let me share screen. Okay. Okay. Hold on. Let's start from here. No, I didn't mean to do that. This nation can't have a resurrection until all the hostages are back, Levy said to the applause of the crowd. Everyone talks about solidarity, but we're not a nation without everyone back home. Angle, a regular feature at many rallies and protests, talked about the family's process of obtaining Dutch citizenship for a fear when he was
Yeah.
still a hostage because of uh, Chucha, Inko's mother, who was Dutch. He mentioned the steady supports the family received, and this is where it reads to the hopeless tone. He mentioned the steady supports the family received from the Dutch government throughout Ophir's 50 days of captivity and for the other hostages as compared to the Israeli government. So they would receive steady supports from the Dutch government droughts of his 50 days of captivity and for other hostages as compared to the Israeli government, which has never contacted the family to see how they're doing until now. And
Yeah. I mean,
pardon me?
yeah, to me, I think it really feels like Israel is just using the hostages kind of as a pawn in this so they can, wage a war forever. But
I mean, really think about it. Imagine that they left Dutch, that or well Dutch. If you're Dutch, then that would mean that you're from the Netherlands, right?
yeah,
So imagine that you left the Netherlands to be one of God's chosen people. I don't know. There's something, I don't know, seems kind of egomaniacal about that, but you left, Dutch. I mean, he left the Netherlands to, you know, be join the promised land promised you by God because you're one of God's chosen. Only for the Netherlands to treat you significantly better than the Israeli regime. Where the Netherlands actually treated you significantly better, giving you, be significantly more supportive by a landslide. And the Israeli government, has them bother to contact you to see how you're doing. You probably
yeah, that
feel,
stings.
yeah, it probably stings. It probably hits you to your core because you probably miss the Netherlands. You probably go, I miss the Netherlands because they support it. Like, because it really is like, I feel it from America. I feel that sting from America. Like, it's like, what was it? Okay, it's like, you know, the Dutch government have been giving them support throughout Ophir's 50 days of captivity and for the other hostages. So not just Ophir, but the other hostages as well, in comparison to the Israeli government, which has never contacted the family to see how they are doing. That's just wow. So it's like, you've left, your home to be part of the promised land, only for, the people from the Netherlands to treat you in a way that's more, I don't know, Christ like, for lack of a better word, but to treat you more Christ like than people in the government who treat your child like your child is trash. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, no. That disgusts me. Like they don't even care about the people that they are killing all these Palestinian, like they're making life hell for Palestinian people, saying that it's for these hostages, and meanwhile they're also just showing a total lack of regard for the families of those hostages, except for when they can use them.
Oh, you don't know, do you? You really sound like you don't know. Oh no, you don't know. Like Ben Gavir made it clear that he doesn't want the hostages to come back. Like Ben Gavir made it
No,
blatantly clear that he actually does not want the hostages to come back. Let me find it. Like, let me find the exact title, if I can. Um, if I could find the exact title, I would. Um, okay, the exact title is Ben Gavir says he repeatedly foiled hostage deals, urges Smotrich to help him stop this one. Okay, hold on, let me Google it. Ben Gavir repeatedly foiled. Okay, let me click this button. Go back to screen share. You really don't know. I'm surprised you didn't know. Oh, oh
I
dear.
mean I believe it. I believe.
Here it is. You see it? Ben Gavir says he repeatedly foiled hostage deals. Urges Mosrich to help stop this one. They don't want the hostages back. Basically,
Yeah.
you know.
No, it's
National
supposed to.
Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir sparked outcry Monday when he claimed that he had repeatedly foiled a hostage ceasefire deal with Hamas over the past year, while calling on Finance Minister uh, Bezalel Smotrich to again join him endorsing an emerging agreement. Basically, they really don't care about the hostages. They want to keep to have the war continues. Like, I mean, I've read so many articles from the Times of Israel that made it blatantly clear that they don't give a flying, they don't care about the hostages at all.
Yeah, they don't, but it's like they continue to use them as an excuse for this aggression, and it's just what they like. I mean, with Ben Gvir, it does not surprise me because he wants to. He really embodies the like absolute like expansionist and like the most expansionist. What am I trying to say? Um, tendency in Israel. Like he wants to annex all the way from like all the way to like Egypt, basically. But
Yeah.
it's amazing that this is like reported on in the Times of Israel, how like this sitting government member is so blatantly letting it be known that this is what he's.
Oh, like this isn't, I mean, you've heard of Yov Gavan, Yov Galant made it clear, like, okay, he got in an argument with Netanyahu because he really wanted to bring the hostages home. And Netanyahu said that he cares more about having the Philadelphia corridor than bringing the hostages home. That if he had to pick and choose between bringing the hostages home and having the Philadelphia corridor, he would rather have the corridor than bring the hostages home. They made it pretty. They made it pretty clear that they do not care about the hostages.
Yeah. And for like all the pro-Zionist people in like in at least like here in the West who wear those like tags around their
Bring
neck
them
every day,
home.
like the bring them home, and like they're getting trying to get all the support for Israel, and like they're just like a piece of the freaking like game. Like they're just being they're getting played too.
Exactly. Like one of the things that I noticed is that people who are pro Palestine actually care about the hostages far more than the Zionists do.
Yeah.
Because it's like people who are free Palestine, that we care far more about the hostages, far more than the Israeli far right government. We actually care about the hostages significantly more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like they could have like they could have negotiated like the if they wanted to, they could have probably got them back if they wanted to, not too much longer after they were captured, and yet still were like when when did this all happen? It was like last year.
October 23rd. No. October 7th, 2023. October 7th, 2023 was when the, I don't know, abduction happened. But about 10 days later, roughly 10 days later, Hamas offered to bring all of the hostages home to Israel for a permanent ceasefire, and Netanyahu rejected it. But he says like, hey, and I think that they took 500 at a time. I believe it was 500 at a time. But Hamas said 10 days later we would give all of them back to you in perfect health in exchange for a ceasefire. And Netanyahu said no.
Yeah, yeah, they have this whole like mentality or this whole like obviously there's a difference between what they say and what they do, but when he talks he's all like we don't negotiate with terrorists. Well, when you're when you're gambling with lives, well he's not gambling with anything because he doesn't care.
He doesn't care about the lies.
You have to do you have to do what it takes, but he's not beholden to the people who want to bring the hostages home. He's just like we know he's using them.
Like his own son? Wait a minute. Doesn't his son like live in Florida? Netanyahu's son?
I think so. Yeah, yeah. He lives in. I think so. Yeah, he lives in America.
Yeah, I think that Netanyahu's son lives in Florida. Let me Google it right quick. What does Netanyahu, whose son, live? Shit, Miami just pops up. Miami just pops up.
Oh my.
Okay, Netanyahu's son hiding in Miami during war. So Netanyahu's son is living in Miami, right? While this is happening.
Wow. Lucky him.
Yeah, so it's kind of a lot like Netanyahu. He's keeping his own family safe. Like his own son is in Miami. He's not worried about his own child. So it's kind of like He's not worried about his Hamas harming his child or doing anything to his own kid because his own kid is in Florida, enjoying the good life. So it's kind of a lot like, the hostages, he doesn't really care. Like, from reading the Israeli press, he clearly does not care about the hostages. Like me being a pro-Palestine activist, I care far more about the hostages than Netanyahu, Ben Gavir, Smotrich. I care far more about the hostages than any of them, anybody in the Israeli government does. The only person in the Israeli government that seems to really care about the hostages and seems to really fight for the hostages will be Yoav Gavant. I mean, Yoav Galant. They got rid of him. Like, when he got too vocal about the hostages, they actually fired him for being too vocal about the hostages. Imagine that. Imagine that. Imagine the Israeli government thinking so little about its own people that they would fire Yoav Galant, whatever, just for being too vocal about caring about the hostages and for saying we need to do everything that we can to bring them home, and for that to be the reason that Yoav Gavant got fired for bringing him home. Oh, that is just sick.
Yeah, literally, like, shows that what goes on in those, like, rooms when they're at the table and they're talking about it, that it's like, it's not a democratic process at all. It's like, and like, it says that they're punishing him because he's not doing, like, he's like, you should know what this is already. Like, they think they got rid of him because they expect him to already know that it's not about that.
Netanyahu is surrounding himself with loyalists. Now Netanyahu is like, what's the name of the North Korean Kim Jong
Un?
Yeah, Kim
Jong-un.
Jong Un. Yeah, like Kim Jong Un, Netanyahu is surrounding himself with loyalists. He's not just keeping himself surrounded with loyalists. If you are not loyal to him, he's going to get rid of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, we've been going on for over 3 hours, and 16 minutes.
Oh, I should get some dinner soon.
Do you want to end it here?
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe we started with Snow White.
In all honesty, I'm not too surprised. I'm not too surprised that we ended here.
It's a good conversation.
Yeah.
I hope.
It also shows how in sync we are on the same issues. Like, we are pretty in sync on this issue.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll trend because we have the theme of the Snow White in the title.
maybe,
Rachel Zegler, if you're watching this, hats off to you.
Yeah, Rachel Zegler, if you're watching, please, make our video go viral, please, make our video go viral.
Oh yeah. Like, share, subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe. Right. Bye, everyone. Yeah, just bye. Love, you want to say goodbye?
Sure. Goodbye, everyone. I hope all of you have a nice day. I hope this conversation has made you think about something.
Yeah, goodbye. Farewell.
Bye. Adios.
Adios.